Hello, and thanks for joining us on the Creative Lunch Hour in partnership with Blug Events. My name is Ben Mottershead, and today I'm joined by TV presenter and comic book lover Ortis Deley. After being talent scouted during an appearance on Blind Date, Ortis has been on our screens for 25 years, having first risen to popularity as a key presenter on an array of children's TV shows such as Trouble TV, Exchange, and Alive and Kicking. In 2009, he joined the popular technology program The Gadget Show as a co-presenter, making a return in 2014 after a 2-year hiatus. Ortis, it is lovely chatting with you today.
Oh, thanks for having me, man. It's always odd, these kind of setups for me, because I have spent most of those 25 years interviewing other people. Yeah. So to be on the other side of the microphone, as it were, is nice, but it's not the most comfortable.
I can imagine it must be quite polarizing to actually kind of be put in that position. So obviously, I imagine that most people tuning in will know who you are. But for those who maybe aren't aware fully of like your obviously career and your background, can you just briefly sort of talk about yourself, where you've come from, and what you're currently doing?
Yeah, how do you make brief 25 years? Yes, I was discovered after an appearance on Blind Date back in '94. This led to some work doing pilot shows for ITV. I got picked up by TCC, which was the children's channel. The children's channel grew up after about 2 or 3 years and became Trouble, which was a station that showed teen content. It was only a cable and satellite channel, but our access and our reach was huge. And I got to do, an absolute shed load of different things for that station, and met I met a lot of artists, actors, and creatives who are now big names in the game and household names, if you will. From there, I went to CBBC, and as you said, did a bunch of shows, Live and Kicking, Short Change, Exchange. I was there for 10 years. I actually left twice. I rather naively in 2003 said, okay, I think I've done enough children's presenting now. It's time for me to move on. Having absolutely no idea what it took to make that leap. It's not a step. It felt like it should be a step for me, having been in presenting for just over 10 years, almost 10 years at that point. I thought it would just be a step, a few meetings, and then I'd get a show on, grown-up television.
Yeah.
How wrong was I? There's so much more to making a move into a different genre, if you will, than just going to interviews.
Well, while we're actually on that topic, I did have a question, which is, obviously, as a millennial myself, I definitely know you best from the shows like Exchange, Live and Kicking, etc. But you were sort of alluding to then, as your career moved away from children's TV and as you wanted to take that, natural progression to more adult-orientated shows, was that, you've already said it was quite difficult to get into that, but when you actually managed to take that step, was it a very strange change in dynamics? Or did you kind of, as you got older, did your kind of attitude towards presenting change with it?
I'd like to think that my attitude to doing the job hasn't changed. I get up in the morning, I'm excited about the work I'm going to do, and 97% of the Ortis that you see on your screens is me. There's no acting or anything like that. There's no pretense. It's as honest as I can make it. And so in 2003, I felt that perhaps I couldn't be a children's presenter anymore, because I was concerned that those children watching wouldn't believe me or believe in me anymore. They'd watch and see an older guy.
Yeah,
he's not cool anymore. He's older than my dad. Why is he still doing the shows that I want to watch? This was my thinking. I wasn't bored with children's TV. I mean, there's a variety of experience and lots of different shows to work on. And so I just felt it was time to move on. And it was an incredibly difficult step, because I had become typecast in a similar way to actors. You know, if an actor only does gangster movies, for him or her to then come out and try and do a rom-com, for example, a lot of the industry won't have it.
Yeah.
Because the audience won't believe them. But they're actors, and surely it's their job to do the convincing. And with me, you know, even though my presenting role was in children's television, that was the arena I was working in, I was an adult in my late 20s. And when I wasn't in front of the camera, I was talking to people my age. I never changed the way I spoke to appeal to kids. It was always me, maybe a little more excitable, maybe a little bit slower, just so that the children watcher could understand what I was saying. But in terms of my demeanor and my main way of communicating, there was no difference. So I felt, put me in front of an adult audience, and the engagement shouldn't really be any different. But the industry thought very differently. They felt that grown-ups didn't want to watch a children's presenter or a former children's presenter on their screens telling them about serious stuff or whatever it was I would be hosting. So I spent many years trying to convince those decision makers in the industry that I was capable of doing it. And in the end, it actually took a fan of my work at CBBC to give me the break I needed to move away from that. And that was the exec producer on The Gadget Show at the time.
Okay.
So I don't know that anything I did at the time to move out of children's presenting actually convinced those making the decisions that I was able to do it. And I think even now, people look at me as that gadget guy. So if I now wanted to move into a different arena, health and fitness, for example, or maybe, go into documentaries, as is something I'm trying to do. Again, I've got that challenge of trying to convince people that I'm capable of talking about subject matter that I'm passionate about. Like I wouldn't try and be a horse racing commentator. I don't know anything about it. I also made the mistake, because the industry is great for telling you what you are good at and what you aren't good at. About 12 years ago, I made the mistake of trying my hand at being an anchor for athletics. And that didn't go so well either. And my career took a 2-year pause as a result of that. So lessons were learned. I now know what I am good at, or have a much better idea of where my strengths lie. But I still have that battle trying to convince people that I'm capable of doing the things that they haven't seen me do.
So do you think the onus of that falls more on, the people who are programming the content to have a bit more of an open mind about the talent they're bringing in? Or do you think it's a bit of like to and fro, like it's on the talent to be adaptable, to show themselves in that light? But is it also a case of media platforms, etc., just having an open mind in regards to who they cast to host these sort of shows?
Definitely a case of both. Well, absolutely a case of both. But I do feel that the impetus lies more with the program makers. It's almost, I almost feel that the audience are viewed as sheep, and they will like what they are told to like.
Yeah.
And the evidence of that is how many of the same types of show you see across the board, across the channels. When there's a hit format for a reality show, every channel wants the same thing.
Yeah.
And they continue to do the same thing until someone takes a risk and does something different. When that someone does something different, everybody follows again. There isn't really a channel out there that is at the forefront of making new and innovative television all the time. Yeah. Every time. Yeah. Apart from perhaps Netflix, which I believe is leading the way in terms of programming, because they are, well, the industry will say they're taking risks because they're doing stuff that goes against the grain, or they're telling stories from niche markets. But these shows are doing phenomenally well. They've got people talking about them, and they've got other channels and production companies now emulating what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
And so I hope that that is the beginning of a new breed of programming, or it was the beginning of a new breed of programming until this happened, what we're currently experiencing.
And obviously, like right now, with the current state of the sort of coronavirus and obviously the lockdown, it has kind of put a massive pause on the amount of sort of shows that are being produced, and there's a lot of reruns out there, etc. Do you think this is a sustainable model? I mean, obviously, let's say we're in lockdown for another 2 to 3 months. Hopefully not, touch wood. But is that sustainable for networks?
Absolutely not. No, it's not. In my view, for on a number of fronts. One, there are only so many repeats that a station production company will have, and two, there's only so many repeats that an audience will watch. I think as a British audience, we love nostalgia. So yes, dig deep in the crates, go way back in the archives and bring back some long lost memories. But I feel that's only going to work for one or two demographics. Younger people hunger for new and innovative content. And if producers aren't staying on top of that, then they are going to lose viewers. How do you combat that? It's incredibly difficult, because it's really difficult to make a TV show, a movie, or a documentary whilst maintaining social distancing. It's almost impossible. How do you do that? People are eventually, I feel, going to get sick of this TV format, what you're seeing at the moment. A screen split into a number of equal size different screens, because as well as people can talk about a given subject, there's no dynamic. There's no cameraman to provide movement. There's no sound man to provide perfect sonics when it comes to people talking or working on explosions and stuff like that. So the worry is the market will eventually stagnate and will hanker for a time when lockdown restrictions are released, so that we can get out there and be creative again. And I'm really keen to see how what we've experienced will affect that level of creativity. What is it we're going to see on the other side of this?
Well, it's kind of interesting how you sort of spoke about Netflix just then, and obviously the sort of content they're putting out, and the fact they are investing so heavily in kind of, indie filmmakers or scripts, etc. For someone who's spent, the vast majority of your career kind of on broadcast television, how do you view these kind of platforms as competition, or do you think there's actually something that can be learned from these platforms that mainstream sort of media providers aren't necessarily adopting as quickly as they could be?
Again, both. There are definitely lessons to be learned. As I mentioned earlier, subject matter that is regarded as niche isn't anymore, especially when you've got a global platform for transmission. There are shows about, we know food shows are popular. And they're popular the world over because everybody eats, and most people, enjoy the process of at least eating, if not preparing. So every platform going has a strong stable of food shows. For me, where the differences come is the storytelling of individuals or groups of people that the masses may not be aware of, or indeed pastimes. Everything from skateboarding to BMXing to whiskey drinking to comic book collecting, all of those things that may have been considered, something that only geeks took part in, or nerds, scientists, and only a handful of people. It's the internet is the way you find other people around the world who think and feel in a similar way, and those are your audiences. And so I would like to think that domestic production companies will start to think, okay, well, it's a niche story, but there may be an audience worldwide. So let's make the show And even if we don't broadcast it here in the UK, then perhaps it could be sold to different territories around the world, and we can make our money that way. Because at the end of the day, it's still about making money. It's about getting advertisers on board. It's about getting viewers' eyes watching the content. And sometimes I feel that the purse strings situation dictates it all too much. But we're really in a situation where we are seeing how much money does make the world go round. Lots of companies are going under because of a lack of cash flow. We can see some countries are so focused on keeping the economy going or starting the economy again, they're not really paying any attention to the fact that their patrons, their nation is dying and suffering. So I hope that, as well as socially, there will be different behavior patterns from you and I going forward after this. I hope that television and media in general looks at the money it spends on its productions and the stories that it tells as well. It doesn't have to all be Corona related, although you're probably going to see an absolute slew of Corona related documentaries on broadcast television at the end of all of this. Just maybe the way we go about making content and the stories we tell hopefully will become broader, and we can hear more from those people who, if it's not a blockbuster tale, then, companies won't buy it. If they're not going to have, tens of millions of people crying whilst watching it all at the same time, they're reluctant to buy it. But I just think, there's a long game to be played here, where a documentary or something like that might be a slow burner. And stories about smaller communities within our country. There are interesting tales to be told, and I think they should be given a microphone and a camera to do so.
So do you think in terms of audience, do you think there's a risk of kind of segregation of different audiences by sort of ignoring platforms? So an example, for instance, when BBC Three, or BBC moved BBC Three on solely online, and BBC Three was kind of the only channel at the time that was kind of capturing that millennial audience. And they're also having a sort of a battle with new media at the moment, with people flocking to online streaming sites, etc. By kind of moving that one channel they had, which was kind of bringing in a younger market, do you think there's kind of a risk there that actually broadcasters will push people onto online media and then allow them to kind of go to Netflix or get pulled in by ad space into these different streaming sites, rather than investing purely in broadcast media to try and create new and interesting content?
I think one of the ways to ensure your audience keeps coming back to you is give them stuff that they want and stuff that stimulates them. So if you're putting out rubbish, then of course you're going to start hemorrhaging viewing figures. If you put content on that engages your audience and gets them talking to their friends about it, and sharing links to your content, then there's less for you to worry about. So I was surprised when the BBC announced that they were moving the BBC Three's content online, only because the BBC is such a massive corporation and quite dinosaur-like in its decision-making. This represented quite a risky and innovative decision on their part. I think it was a fantastic decision. Because the audience that most of the BBC Three content is made for look online for their stuff. So why not make it really easy to find that content online? I think it was an absolutely boss move. And the content that they're making is still really, really top class. It still feels considered in a BBC sort of way, but the stories being told, and I know I keep coming round to this, it is about the stories that you tell, chime with that age group, and so that works for them. I know there's a question of advertising and stuff like that, and I don't know the full ins and outs of how an organization generates income through advertising or something like that. But I think at the bottom line is, when you launch a station, you want it to be successful. And one of the main ways of measuring success is how many people are watching, how many views you get, whether people are talking about it. Is it getting column inches, the right type of column inches in the press? And is what you're doing starting new trends on other channels and with other broadcasters? The talent that you're using, are they then being poached to do stuff outside of the gigs that you've been given them? There are various ways of measuring success. And from my side of things, talking to commissioners who have worked at BBC Three, and working with directors and producers who have done stuff for BBC Three, it's a great breeding ground for producing talent, both behind the camera and on screen. So I think what they're doing is working.
So we've heard that you actually have a production company yourself alongside your presenting career. So with that in mind, with this idea of, producers and directors working in tandem, or like companies outsourcing talent and creating formats, is there any kind of new or upcoming formats that you'd particularly like to explore that you would see value in actually progressing towards?
I'm still very much an old school, entity, if you will. And so in terms of new and innovative and creative ideas, I'm kind of like willing to leave that to the younger generations to take care of, to master and to keep going. What I personally would like to get my teeth around is documentary making, shining a light on some of those things again I highlighted earlier. People who are helping to keep the wheels of community going. Stories from and about ethnic minorities who are working away in the background or in parallel to bigger organizations, bigger cultural movements that we don't hear about or see. The difficulty in that with me is it's never too late, but at my stage in life, there are so many other things that are important that need to be maintained.
Yeah.
I don't always have the time or the energy to put into the projects that I want to get off the ground. And I mean, that's my issue. I'm not making excuses. If it doesn't happen and it's as a result of that, I can sleep at night because I know I have divvied my time up in a way that makes sense to me. So those sort of documentary ideas are ones that I want to push forward. Experiences in certain under certain life conditions, and who knows, after the events of what we're experiencing, the market may be more open to stories like that moving forward. We'll see. Unlike other people, and I won't say so many other people, because looking at social media, you only ever see the shiny side of people's lives.
Yeah.
I don't seem to have more time on my hands. Lots of people are like, I'm in lockdown and I've got so much time on my hands. I'm going to start this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to, develop this, and I'm going to launch that. And I'm like, where are these people finding the time?
Yeah, I'm like that.
To do this? And I'm like, oh yeah, 2 kids, trying to keep a partner happy, and there are so many things to sort of keep going. All I want to do is catch up on my box sets, and I haven't made a dent. I haven't made a dent in those yet.
But you've also got to take time for yourself, and you've got to make sure that you're mentally okay. And obviously, like you were saying, when you've got 2 kids and you've got a partner and you've got to keep your kind of personal brand going, and you've also got to look after yourself, there isn't that much time in the day to be able to tick off all those from a list.
There really isn't. And I'm a man who really likes at least 8 hours of sleep a night. Anything less than that, and it kind of messes up the rest of the following day. But I think mental health is very important. If you're not functioning well mentally, the cascade of events, negative events that it can have on your social and physical being is it can be quite devastating.
Yeah.
So the most important thing for me is to make sure that, you know, I can be the best version of myself that I can be. And then everything else comes into play after that. Being a father, being a good husband, and then maybe having a little bit of time to get creative and new ideas off the ground. But I think number one is mental attitude, mental health, should I say. And more people are talking about that. And I don't think there could ever be enough people sharing how they're feeling right now, not just from the point of view of getting it out of themselves, because that helps, but also showing others that oh wow, they're talking about it, and so maybe I can find someone to talk about it with too. And it doesn't have to be face to face with somebody. It can be just putting it out there. With the way social media is currently, you put it out there, there's going to be someone at the other end who relates to it and will hopefully reach out back to you and either echo how you're feeling, say to you it's okay, or, you know, say keep going.
Amazing. I would have actually liked to have ended on that because I think that was a really poetically put statement. But we have only got a couple of, we're down to the last 5 minutes, got a couple of questions left. I've kind of alluded to this so far, or not alluded, but I've kind of pushed this question back a little bit because we were in such a nice flow about, you know, broadcasting. But obviously you returned to the Gadget Show in 2014. A lot of your current life is based in tech, current tech, future tech. Is there anything that's coming out at the moment, or things is coming out in the future that you're particularly excited about in the world, in terms of the world of technology?
Let's think. I mean, I probably love smart home tech more than other areas currently. I think a lot of technology is, I wouldn't say it's on pause or on the back burner, because I think if you look at one area of industry, then it's tech firms that are doing very well. Generally speaking, of course, there are lots of startups that are struggling at the moment, companies that haven't been going for too long, or whose direction was going very well until coronavirus hit. So I don't know how much innovation we'll see in terms of the commercial side of things over the coming months. But I like the idea of my house thinking more and more for itself, and me having to do less to get the lights turned on, the contents of my fridge freezer replenished, the right TV show according to my tastes put on as soon as I walk into a room, ways of AI detecting mood and changing lighting and visual content to go with that, and and ways that basic stuff is being innovated as well. This whole thing now, I'm trying to look around for it. I was given these recently, which are they're the Galaxy Buds Plus.
Oh yeah.
And over years, we've been looking at companies make headphones smaller and smaller and smaller, and the smaller they get, the looser they are. But now you've got ones that fit in the ear properly, and they block out sound very well. But blocking out sound isn't necessarily a good thing if you're exercising. For example, if you're cycling, I've always thought it would be great to cycle to music, but then of course you don't have the awareness of what's going on around you sonically.
Because that's where you've got the Bone Shock. Do you know the Bone Shock headphones that actually like they send vibrations through your jaw and for your bone structure, which allow you to hear music but have full peripheral kind of like sound awareness,
right?
Which is really really interesting.
Okay, so these now have the technology can be shrunk enough now for those to have microphones in them that allow for ambient sound to come in.
Oh, amazing!
And what these do really well is the music experience isn't affected. It still feels like you're closed in. But as soon as those microphones detect an external sound, you can hear that as well. It's quite an odd sensation. It's an artificial version of the sound, of the real sound, but nonetheless it gets through and it works. So it's the way everyday technology is being tweaked just a little bit more to make it more to make it easier to integrate into your normal life. I'm looking forward to seeing how much further that goes. And then there's all sorts of conversations about how we are actually going to integrate technology with our physical selves. There's lots of talk about wearable tech. So I have a Levi jacket that has a sort of a physical smart tab in the sleeve. There is conductible weaving in that part of the sleeve that allows me to tap, swipe, press and hold in order for it to do different things with my phone. Take photographs, skip sound, start a phone call, that kind of thing. And it won't be long until you've got conductive threading throughout your entire clothes that allow you to do that. You want to make a phone call, you can tap above your chest plate, rather like they did in Star Trek, but there won't actually be a physical object there. So I'm excited to see how much more technology is woven into the stuff we wear. And there are already stories that have been around for a few years of people inserting chips in their wrists, so that RFID chips, so that they can pay for stuff, so that they can be located. Lots of people are really, really scared about that. As is the case with most new technologies, you can use them for good or you can use them for evil. If you're going to engage yourself in new technology, try and do it from an informed position. Don't just run into it because it looks or sounds cool, because there may very well be repercussions afterwards. But it's all quite exciting.
Amazing. Well, with that question, we have actually come to the end of the Q&A. Did you just want to quickly tell people what you're going to be up to after lockdown? Have you got any plans at the moment?
After lockdown, I wish I knew. I honestly don't know. So the Gadget Show currently is on pause, but what we are doing are weekly news updates and home reviews, which are going on to the Gadget Show's YouTube channel. So that is going to see a lot more activity over the coming weeks. I also co-run an account on Instagram called Glassmates, Glassmates UK. Me and a bunch of friends, we drink and we talk about what's in our glass in order that we can educate ourselves and others to not just go for the standard bottles. Apparently, I'm holding a cocktail making session this Friday night on the Glassmates account. So that kind of stuff is keeping me occupied. And my wife, as I say, she has launched an Instagram account called Q, Fee and Me, which is just giving ideas on how to keep your kids occupied, to stop them tearing strips out of each other, and perhaps as a parent you're tearing strips out of them. And so we're just trying to keep busy. At the end of all of this, who knows, I might be doing something completely different, but that's the exciting and scary thing about one of the additional exciting and scary things about what we're going through at the moment.
Amazing. Well, with that, we have come to the end. Thank you so much for being on this with us, Ortis. It's been amazing.
My absolute pleasure,
to hear your take.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you.
It's great to hear that you and your family are doing well, though, and everything's ticking along. And actually, just your insights into, especially like the sort of, the media hemisphere is so fascinating for someone like myself who hasn't actually had a career in that. And I'm sure anyone who's been listening has also took a lot away from this. So again, thank you so much, and I hope you have a lovely day.
Thank you. You too. Take care.